Good morning, everyone. This is Youssef, and I hope you are doing good today. Today, we will be starting a new topic, which is the introduction to offensive security. In this topic, we have 3 rooms that we will be going over. The first one is the Web Application Security room, then the Operating System Security, and the last one is Network Security. So let's start with our first room, and let's go. In this room, we will have 3 tasks. The first one is Introduction, then the Web Application Security Risks tasks, and the last one will be Practical Example. So let's go. In the first task, it will give us the explanation of what's a web application. So, what is a web application? Usually, the word application in the software world refers to a program that we install in our system, and it takes place from our memory and storage. But for web application, it's a bit different. The web applications, we don't need to install them in our machine. But the only thing we need to install is a modern browser that we will use to go to all these applications. So we need a modern browser like a Firefox, and through this, we can search for the web application that we want to visit, and the web browser will get it for us. So it's so simple, but behind this process, there are many process and steps that we will be going through. And here, TryHackMe is giving us a very good examples, such as Gmail. So we can download Gmail on our system, or we can use web browser to go to the web application of Gmail. Also, the same thing for Amazon. You can download it on your system, or you can use your browser to get the web application, and many more examples that have the same concept. Hopefully, you got what I mean. So how do we get these programs if it's not installed on our machine? These programs are installed and running on something called a server. A server refers to a computer. This computer is used to serve clients all over the world, so these servers will have this app installed, and once you go to your browser and ask for YouTube, for example, the browser will take your request and give it to the server that has YouTube web application, and once it finds it, it will get a copy of the application from the server and display it on your screen so you can use it. So this is how we get our web applications. And behind these steps, there are more steps that works behind the scenes. Also, another great example that TryHackMe is giving to us is an example of an online shopping application. Usually, these application uses something called database to store information about their customers, for example, or about the product they have. So Website X, which is an online shopping app, for example, will have database that stores information about its customers, so we will call it Customers Database. Also database that stores information about its products, so we will call it Products Database. So once you sign up for this web application, it will store your information in the Customers Database. So whenever you sign in again, they can remember you and remember your information. So this is a very valuable information for both the web applications, which will try to keep it safe and protected, and also for the hackers, who will try to steal it, so they can use it and cause loss for the web application. And also, they might use it against the customers themselves. For example, they might be able to steal their bank information, and if they did, they might use it to steal money from you, for example. So this is how the database works in simple words. And here, TryHackMe is giving us a picture that shows us how this process works. So imagine you are already logged into an online shopping app, and you want to search for a specific product. So you will enter the name of the product that you want to search for in the search bar, and you will press enter. And here where all the magic happens. The web browser will take your request or the word that you entered and will go to the web application and give it to it. Then the web application will take this word and will go to the product's database and ask for this product. Once the database receives, it will take it and see if it has it or no, and if it found it. It will send the information to the web application, then it will give it to the browser, then it will show it to you. So this, how you see the product. For us users, we only see the last part, only when the product got displayed on our screens. Also, usually, there is something called bug bounty programs. So web applications or companies will tell everyone try to hack our websites and tell us how you did this, and we will give you prizes and pay you money for doing so. These programs, we call it bug bounty. Okay, good job so far, and now it's quiz time. What do you need to access a web application? And it's a browser. And good job, we got the correct answer. Okay, now we finished task number 1, and let's go to the second task. Okay, task number 2. In this task, we will be introduced to some risks that might happen with web application. So let's start. TryHackMe gave us something that we might be doing in daily basis using web applications, which is online shopping. So there are some steps that we need to follow in order to do this process. The first thing is log in to our account, then we will search for the product. Then we will add this product to our cart. Then we will add our address. Then we will provide the payment details. Okay, so this might be something that we will be doing daily. So behind all of these steps, attacker might do some attacks in some of these steps that will be affecting the web application and also its users. So let's look how an attacker might attack in these steps. So for example, an attacker might use the first step, which is the login phase, to run an attack. So let's see how. An attacker might use an attack called a brute force to log in. So for example, the attacker might be knowing a specific username, and he's sure that the username is correct, but he wants to find the password. So he might use a list which full of some common passwords and use a tool that will try to automate the process of login. And that's what we call a brute force attack. What other attack a hacker might be conducting against the web application? Also through searching. So when you search for an item, it sends the word that you want to look for to the database in order to return it back. So an attacker might try to trick the database to make it send information that it shouldn't be sending, or no one should have an access to it. Or might send a malicious code that he wants to be executed in the database in order for him to control it. Also, usually when you send your payment information to the web application, if it's not encrypted, an attacker might be able to steal it. So for example, you and the attacker might be connected to the same network. So the attacker might be sitting around and trying to analyze what is being sent over the network. So if your payment method isn't encrypted, he might be able to analyze the traffic and catch your payment information, which you don't want to happen. So these are some of the attacks that might happen in a very simple process, which is buying something online. Okay, next we will be talking about something called identification and authentication failure. So this might sound weird, but let's go over it. In identification, what happened is like figuring out that you know that person. He is familiar for you. But in authentication is trying to prove that they are really who they assume they are. For example, if they said that they are person X, now they have to prove that they are person X. But in these steps, there might be some weakness that an attacker might use. So for example, as we previously said, an attacker might try a brute force attack. Also, something more dangerous is when using a weak password that can be easily guessed, such as 123456, which it can be guessed just in seconds. One more thing is when the database stores the passwords in plain text. So just imagine if an attacker was able to trick the database and get the passwords. And if these passwords are plain, it will be over. Now the hacker can log in any account he wants. Here are simple examples of what we just said in this picture. The second thing that we will be talking about is the broken access control. So first, we need to know what's an access control. An access control is responsible for that. Each user is only having access to their files only. For example, if you have an account on TryHackMe, you should only have an access relates to your account, not someone else's account, so access control is responsible for this. Let's see how might a broken access control happen. Sometimes the developers might not be able to or do some mistakes and give the users more privileges than they need, for example. As a customer, you should be allowed to look at the price of a product, but you shouldn't be allowed to edit this price. Also, if you can see or edit the data for another customer, this is count as a broken access control. For example, if you were able to look at the bank transaction for an account that's not yours. Also, having the ability to look at some private pages that required authentication and high privilege. So if you were able to look at without authentication and without having the privileges, this is count as broken access control. So this was the broken access control part. We will also be talking about. Next, we will be talking about injection. Here in this part, we won't be talking about it a lot, but we will have to go over it in deep details in different rooms. So just talk a look on what we need to cover here. So what's injection? Injection is the ability of an attacker to inject or add a malicious code as a part of an input, such as adding it to a comment section, to a web application to do some malicious work. Usually, when developers develop a web app, they should put restriction on what's allowed to be received from users as an input. And if developers fail to put these restrictions, this might lead to very bad consequences. Next, we will be talking about cryptographic failures. So first, why do we need cryptography? We need cryptography to keep our information safe. So when we use cryptography, we do some processes such as encryption. So when we encrypt data, we will be changing the plain text. We entered using our keyboard into some gibberish, so no one can understand it even if they find it, because they will find the gibberish, not the plain text. But decryption is doing the opposite, which is converting this cipher or gibberish back into plain text. And to do this process, we use a secret key, and this key is used to prove that you should see this data. Okay, so let's go over some cryptographic failures. Okay, the first example here that TryHackMe gave to us is when we are using the internet. When we use the internet, there is something that we use that allow us to browse the internet and send a data, and we call it HTTP protocol. But the HTTP protocol isn't safe because it transmits data in plain text. So this was so risky. Developers developed or upgraded the HTTP protocol, and they created the HTTPS protocol. This protocol transmits the data, but it also encrypts it to keep it safe. So if you use the HTTP protocol, this counts as in cryptographic failures because it won't keep you data safe. Also, scientists were able to develop many cryptographic ways. So if you used a weak one that can be broken easily, that also counts as a cryptographic failures. The last example that we have over here is when you use easy encryption keys such as 1234. So this key can be guessed so easily. So if something sounds hard for you or you didn't fully understand it, this is completely fine. We will go over it in upcoming rooms with more details. And now let's go to our quiz for this task. Okay, question 1. You discovered that the login page allows an unlimited number of login attempts without trying to slow down the user or lock the account. What is the category of this security risk? Great, good job. It's identification and authentication failure. Okay, question 2. You noticed that the username and password are sent in clear text without encryption. What is the category of this security risk? Great, it's cryptographic failures. And now task 2 is over. Let's get to our last task for today. Our last task for today will be a practical example. So we will be using a vulnerable website that has an insecure direct object references, IDOR, issue, which is a type of the broken access control vulnerabilities. For example, if you went to a specific website and you open an image and you figured out that the name of this image is IMG_1003, JPG, so you might guess that the name of the next image is IMG_1004, JPG, so what an attacker might do is try to access this picture. Normally, an attacker shouldn't have an access to this image, and here's where the role if an access control comes. It shouldn't allow the attacker to get access to the picture if he's not allowed to. Here an IDOR might occur if the web server didn't validate or check if this user should have access to this image or no. So let's the URL that TryHackMe is providing us as an example, https://store.tryhackme.thm/customers/user?ID =16. So this URL ends with ID of 16. So an attacker might guess that there is another user with the ID of 17 or 15, so he might put the same URL, but just with changing the ID part in the URL with 15 or 17, for example, to get information about other users. So if the ID or vulnerability exists, an attacker might use it. Same thing could happen with files as well. For example, if there is a file which is 007, taxed, an attacker might guess that there is another file that's called 008. Taxed, and the attacker might be able to reach to it. Okay, now let's start our practical example and press the View Site button. So if we looked here, we will see many tabs. One is the main tab we also have planned, Shipments, Inventory, Your Activity. So the attacker was able to use one of the employees' account with ID 11, so we will try to see if the ID or vulnerability exists over here. So we will change the ID number. Let's try number 10, for example, and see what will happen. Okay, we can tell that the IDOR exists over here. Let's try to put number 9 and see if we can get to the account of someone who's working in the inventory management system, so we can cause any issues in the shipment system. So let's try number 9. Okay, we can see that the employee number 9 is able to revert the shipments, and this will cause some issues. So let's try to click revert in order to see what will happen, and we might find our flag. So let's keep clicking revert. Okay, good job, we were able to get our flag. Let's copy it to answer our last question. Let's submit it. And good job, we got the correct answer. And our room for today is over. We actually did a very good job for today. We had a lot of information that we went over. If you liked our video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe in our channel, and also follow our page on Instagram. You will find the link in the description of this video. And see you in the next video.